Hello, I am Radagast, and this is a follow-up commentary on Where's the Blood? I'd like to thank all the people who have been watching the video, and I've had a couple of new subscribers. I'd like to thank you all. Got a few thumbs up, so but thank you for watching. Okay, so yesterday afternoon, so now it's kind of going into Thursday, but it's still Wednesday to me. It's around midnight. So I did a video on Where's the Blood based on looking at that time at what I could find about the shooting of the ambassador in Turkey, the Russian ambassador. And to this day, I've been seeing even different angles that allow me to kind of look around, and no matter where I look, at least regarding the ambassador, I still see no blood. Which, again, after emptying what sounded like a full magazine of I guess maybe 9 shots of a 9mm, and 9mm are known for piercing bodies. It's one of the reasons why the .45 caliber was invented when apparently, I guess when Americans went into the Philippines, and they went there with 9mm, and the tribespeople that they were meeting were quite impassioned warriors, and the bullets were going through them, and sometimes the people still managed to kill a few of the shooters before they themselves died. So they invented the .45 caliber, which kind of meant to drop somebody, if not even push them back. So again, when somebody's using bullets that are known to go through people and empties a cartridge, at least a spatter. It was a spotlessly white floor, and I've seen it now from multiple angles. And I've only read reports. I couldn't find the video myself. So this is third hand. So I never, I'll opine on it, but I can't consider this my own eye evidence like I did with my first thing of just Where's the Blood with the ambassador. But somebody said they actually saw him. I've heard different reports. One was about how slow the ambulance backed up. Okay, that's neither here nor there. But apparently somebody said they saw a camera that was in the ambulance itself. Again, who knows if this is true? I'm just going to say this. But they said that apparently his jacket and was removed, and then his shirt. And, of course, once the jacket's off, his white shirt, you would think, after being pierced by multiple bullets, would have some sign of blood. And according to something I read, of course I didn't see it with my own eyes, they said there was no more blood. That could be completely bogus. I am still just sticking to what I saw there. So now the commentary here comes on what would be the motive. And the motive came to me relatively quickly, and I've had a day now to kind of see if any other information and my own intuition, kind of going into the noosphere, so to speak, and trying to suss this out. Plus, there was also, was reading the reports, largely on RT of how the Russian government reacted, and specifically Vladimir Putin, and there was a kind of a lack of passion there. Not that, again, everything about this, it's about nuance. I'm very much into examining language. I'm into looking at the nuance of things. And there just seemed to be a certain amount of matter-of-factness. And so in kind of sussing out the meaning, here's my take on if it was not a true assassination, what would be the benefit to Russia for such an assassination, or a feigned assassination, in essence, a false flag? Okay, as anybody who is following news that isn't coming out necessarily from the well, I guess you can. There's two kinds of news. All right, there's the news that's kind of coming on alternative, or what I'm going to really call the independent media, people who feel that they can just kind of call it as they see it. And then, of course, the mainstream echo chamber, shrill, agenda-driven news. Okay, now agenda-driven news is a little bit different than bias. I expect every single country to have a bias. Like I go to Press TV, an Iranian news thing, and it's very typically Iranian. It's like got a lot of boastfulness. The Iranians like to boast a lot. They like to make noise. Not that I'm thinking it's not bad. That's just their nature. Again, each culture is different, and I find that the way Press TV puts out their stuff, of course, has a certain bias, and it also has a certain amount of what I'm going to call Persian bluster. They're really kind of a blustery bunch, and I'm not saying that it's bogus. It's just how they see it, and they kind of call it. It's a little less diplomatic. At least a lot of the voices that are on Press TV, Zarif, who I think is their foreign minister or whatever his designation is, he was the one who negotiated the agreement with Kerry and the other nations. He is not known for bluster. He's kind of like a Lavrov kind of guy. Lavrov's got to be my favorite diplomat on the planet. Sergei Lavrov of Russia. And I'm quite sure Kerry wishes he didn't have to deal with Lavrov because he's just in over his head. And they're dealing with, they're representing different governments. Anyway, let me cut to the chase. So America had 9/11, okay? I don't know who did 9/11, but I feel very sure about who let 9/11 happen, all right? We'll just leave it there because I don't know. I absolutely do not know who did it. And there's a lot of questions about a lot, but even if we wanted to go with the narrative of what happened that day, as was delivered by the news, what's really clear, knowing what the capabilities of the United States air defense is, and also some things that apparently Cheney said about calling off some F-16s, it was allowed to happen. And one can see that the Patriot Act showed up, I don't know how many pages of document, showed up right after that. And of course, there was first the foray into Afghanistan, and then there was the of course, Afghanistan is continuing horror, and so is Iraq a continuing horror. But in each case, the fact that had happened, that was allowed to garner some sympathy for the United States. 3,000 people in the buildings died. That'll generate a little sympathy. And of course, we've had tens of thousands of responders die from all kinds of diseases. Some of them seem to be a little radiation related, but that's another story still. But anyway, again, there was a sympathy, a certain amount of, and the world gave the United States carte blanche to do the things that it did. Very, very aggressive things to other countries. The countries that did not invite them in, okay? Afghanistan did not say, oh, could you help us with the Taliban? And Iraq did not ask the United States, can you help us with Saddam Hussein? The United States decided to go in there. So despite the fact that the government, the elected government, popularly elected government of Bashar Assad of Syria, has invited the Russians in to help them with a multinational invasion force, the echo chamber of the mainstream media of which really is the globalist one. You see it in Europe, you see it in America. That's the globalist crowd. All right, they're the ones who, the TPP crowd, the TTIP crowd, Agenda 21, and then I guess Agenda 2030. That crowd. All right, the crowd who lets Samantha Powers speak and call that an ambassador to the UN. That harpy. So anyway, Russia's catching a lot of grief for helping Syria out, getting called a lot of bad names and every dead body is Russia's fault. So I guess maybe they looked at the 9/11 thing and go, they got to kill a lot of people without catching a whole lot of grief because, people felt some sympathy for them. So I actually think that the motive behind feigning an assassination, especially somebody screaming, the Allahu Akbar, which is Arabic and not Turkish, and mentioning this is for Aleppo. So, okay, everything was kind of put into place there. So and then really Russia's response is, okay, now we know we need to really bring down the hammer on the terrorists in Syria. So that's why I think if that man, and I hope he's not dead, because if I'm saying all this and he actually died, I'd feel really kind of crummy. But like I said, it's just everything, all my alarms going off on this being staged. So anyway, so my whole thing is that Russia is feeling really frustrated about the opprobrium that it's getting for doing what, first of all, Syria asked them to help to come in, what is to me clearly a Western criminal activity, which is, the pouring of millions of dollars into supposedly the freedom fighters who apparently are coming from, 80 to more, maybe 110 countries. I mean, it doesn't matter. So many of the people in Syria killing Syrians are not from Syria. All right. So anyway, so it's basically a funded invasion force by any number of parties. But, it's like their own little cabal. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, looks like the UK is involved. Certainly looks like the United States is involved. It's kind of hard to not be involved when terrorists get fined with United States weapons. So I really think that was what it is. It's kind of like, right, our ambassador was killed. That is the official story. And of course, people are going to stick to it. Because, once you open the can of worms in any media about, the Western media, it's be really kind of hard for them to start using the term false flag. That's not a term that they use. That's a conspiracy term. So they're kind of stuck kind of using that because that would be a conspiracy theory. And they're sitting in a pretty weak place as far as the narrative goes. They're losing more and more people by the day. They'll always have an audience. There'll always be an audience for anything. So I really expect Russia to feel free to avenge the killing of their ambassador by somebody who clearly seemed to be identifying with the terrorists in Syria. Now, one of the reasons I think, another thing that I think might have happened is, I don't know if you're aware that in the United States, the FBI is really good at finding really incapable people who are really incapable of doing anything on their own, but they have big mouths, okay? So it was a couple of years ago at Christmas, they had the Portland bomber. And what it was that somebody, I guess, wanted to do something nasty, didn't have any resources, probably didn't even have the intelligence to pull it off. And suddenly, they were helpers. Of course, they were undercover FBI agents. They set him up with the fake bomb, give him the van, set everything up. He goes there. The bomb's a dud. Nobody dies. He gets arrested. And the FBI goes, "We're stopping terrorism." All right, there's a lot of that. The same thing guy with that, the underwear bomber, the man with no passport, getting on an international flight. Try to get on an international flight without a passport. And then you start seeing how odd that is. Again, it seems like a little bit of a patsy, and of course it allowed the TSA to be even more scrutinizing. That's where we get all the pat downs and the feel ups and all the other insults to freedom. So that's basically the kind of the wrap up of my commentary. Oh, but I do believe so. In that thing, I think that maybe, and most people who are plotting to do something often speak about it, and I'm not sure, but one of the reasons I think there was no blood is I think that the guy who, the shooter, might have been given the equipment to use. You know, like, here you go, here's a gun that can't be traced. And I think they gave him a gun loaded with blanks. I think that's why there's no blood. And I think the ambassador was in on it. I think that's why what I saw, I mean, I saw him try to make a good grimace face, but I don't know. I think I've seen Bruce Willis make better faces of getting shot than I saw the ambassador if he was really getting shot. Again, his positioning on the floor, just everything about it, I feel is staged. And again, this is my perception of it. I can't categorically say it, but I'm going to stick it. This is my story, and I'm sticking to it. So I think that the guy was set up with a cartridge of blanks. The ambassador conveniently knew it was coming and played dead or wounded because supposedly he died in the hospital. And now Russia feels that, hey, now we can bring the hammer down because we have the right to avenge our ambassador. And I think that's it. That's, to me, is what's going on here. So that's my follow-up and my commentary on Where's the Blood. Thank you all again. And I thank my new subscribers once again. And I'm going to try to be there's so much news going on. I'll close up with this. There is so much going on from I'm Mod Wiz, the Modern Wizard. So I have plenty of metaphysical things to say, but most people probably wouldn't follow it. I might have an audience that would eat it up, but it would be, I'm not 101 type person. It would be intermediate to advanced, and I don't really want to, to me, it's more of a personal pursuit. But anyway, numerologically, okay, there's all kinds of ways you can use numerology, but basically whatever the year is, okay, it's called a universal year. 2016 is a 2, a 0 counts to nothing, a 1 is 6, that's a 9. And in numerology, we have cycles, 1 through 9, and then you get to 10, which is where 0, so you're back at 1. So, so that's how numerology basically works in cycles of 9. So this is a finish up year. This is a 9 year. 2016 is a year of completion of a cycle. So 2017 is a 1 year. So it's a 1 universal year, at least in the Western calendar. And so that means a new beginning, especially for those who follow the Gregorian calendar. And even those who keep another calendar also still refer to the Gregorian calendar. So it's kind of like a global calendar. So the universal global year is 2017, January 1st, marks a 1. We're on the countdown, folks. Matter of fact, I don't know, we have 10 days left. So we're starting a whole new cycle. And then I don't know if anybody has followed on Dutch since and these, watching these things, and you see this huge sine wave of all this kind of energy coming in. And there's all kinds of things, chords of Azoth, which I just found out looking into the One Truth forum, chords of Azoth. Oh, and somebody else calls it the wave. Again, there's all these terminologies for phenomena, data. But people like to romanticize things. And I can feel it. There's definitely a ramping up, and I think it's something that's meant to increase consciousness. I'm even calling it kind of like an external Kundalini. And if you know, again, this is where I get into problem. If you don't know what the Kundalini is, what I just said is useless, and I don't like to get into whole lots of explanations. For those of you who do, you might know what I'm talking about. And also, there's a whole thing. If you're not prepared, like if you have a spontaneous Kundalini rising, which is the energy from the spine going up through your spine. It has to do with the chakras. I hope you know what chakras are. Actually, there's this little bit of a thing behind me that has the chakras, a representation of it. It goes up, and your consciousness expands. I mean, you kind of you get like a burst of cosmic consciousness. If you're not ready for it, or even if you're partially ready for it, it's kind of like being on ayahuasca for a couple of weeks. Excuse me. So it can be very disorienting. I think that this kind of external Kundalini energy won't be quite as destabilizing, and those who are looking for more consciousness, those who are already on the path, I think they're actually going to find great. There's a kind of like almost like a unity, a thing of freedom, a thing of recognizing. I mean, for me, in Gaian terms or Sophian terms or kind of Gnostic terms, it's kind of part of Sophia's correction. And she's called upon this energy from the galactic center. And here it is visiting us and helping her bring her anthropines, her creations, up to snuff. And my very first video I ever made was January 20th, 2015. It's called Paradigm Disruption, Gaia is Our God. But again, I have an opinion or even a gnosis, but I don't have an agenda, so that's why I don't really bring it up. I occasionally mention it so you know my reference point, but I don't have any God concept to sell. I just have my gnosis. And but we've already seen how just the NWO, the globalist control, so having somebody that they were not the president. I'm talking about Trump. If you really think that they were ready for him, all you have to do is listen to the chatter now. I mean, the way they're reacting tells me that it wasn't all a staged show. These reactions are just embarrassing. I mean, I don't think media would sacrifice their viewership and their credibility going on a limb with such crazy stuff unless it was real. I mean, unless they're in real panic mode. So anyway, as this energy wave, I think is going to persist. I think there are some of us who will find greater unity, greater consciousness rising, and the ones who really don't want their consciousness to rise are going to go even crazier. So I expect the next week, next 10 days, and going at least the next 10 days especially. I mean, this ending of a cycle, who knows? I mean, a lot of things could crash and burn in 10 days. I don't get that there's going to be a conflagration, although I'm definitely aware that within the realm of possibilities, I see it. As a probability, very low, very low. And part of creating reality is that we, the observers. So I'm not putting, as much as I kind of see that out of the corner of my eyes as a possibility, I give it no energy. I just go, yeah, I know you're lurking over there. I'm not giving you any energy on that. I'm seeing us all starting to come together. I'm seeing freedom popping up all over the world. I'm seeing the throwing off of the globalist control, the one world government run by a bunch of soulless psychopathic people, plain and simple. So anyway, I guess that's a good way to conclude this. Thank you all again, and I hope to have another video out tomorrow. I mean, with all this news going, and I got plenty to say. It's just a matter of turning on the camera and trying to stay lucid long enough to get it across to you. So God bless you all. Be well.